Hello, welcome to this episode of A Facilitator's Journey, the podcast from School of Facilitation. Today I'm joined by Lisa Partridge from Six Comms. Lisa is a Singapore-based facilitator, and today we're going to talk about business development and what does it take to nurture, to grow your business. What are the different types of business development? We hear some stories from Lisa about networking. We also hear what she has done specifically within her business that has helped her create connection in Singapore, but also turn it into a way of nurturing new and potential clients. So you know what to do, team. Get a cup of tea, join me on the pink seat, and tune in your ears. Hey Lisa, how are you?
I'm good, Kirsty. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Good to see you. So welcome to the School of Facilitation podcast, A Facilitator's Journey. First question I ask everybody is how do we know each other? How did we meet?
Well, I don't want to say the word stalked, but I think it would be accurate. I kind of stalked you on LinkedIn. And I've tried to work this out, but I'm estimating around 7 or 8 years ago.
What?
Would that
No.
be really? Or at least
Possible.
6? It's at least 6.
Wow. I've been on LinkedIn since 2007, so I've been there from the beginning.
No, I think it is. I think it's all of that 6 or 7 years ago. And there was real intention behind my stalking or my fangirling from a distance, should I say. I'm going to really embarrass you now. But I was working for an organisation. I'm in Singapore and I was working for the British Council Professional Development Centre. So we did all the corporate training and worked with a range of organisations. A lovely team. At our peak, we had about 15 trainers in the team and we got really busy. And so we ended up going into the rooms, facilitating our workshops or going off site, and we became very satellite. And during that period, I had 3 children. So I was in and out, like on maternity leave, back in. I changed my contract a few times. So I started as a freelancer. Then I moved into a full-time role. And then I started having my children. So I went down to 3 days a week. So I kind of didn't have that connection with the team as much as other people. And because we were so busy at our height, we didn't have regular get-togethers with each other. So we could go for months not really connecting and not exchanging methodology, or unless we were working on a client together in like trios or partnered with the client manager. As a team, it was very infrequent that we would actually be in a room and talk about facilitation, like the art and the craft of facilitating.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I was like, I need to put my head up and look around and see what's out there in terms of my own professional development and upskilling myself, because they didn't have the time or the resources to give us professional development. So I found that I needed to kind of look outwards. And it just so happened, I went on to LinkedIn, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I was on maternity leave, and I had like a few weeks left of maternity leave before I was going back. And I was scrolling through LinkedIn with this intention of finding people that could help me get better at facilitating. And your name popped up, and the School of Facilitation. And I was so excited because I was like, oh, there's a school and facilitation all in one phrase, which was exactly what I was looking for. And I didn't waste any time. I connected with you. And
Yeah.
so started a few messages. And
Yeah.
then
I
I
remember
was
that.
kind of communicating with you quite a bit. And then I went back after maternity leave, back into the organization and was like, I don't know, I felt kind of good because I felt like I'd had this contact with you online, and it kind of made me feel like, oh, it doesn't matter if I don't have anything coming from my organization. I've got this bank of resources that I can tap into,
Yeah.
and then tap
Nice.
also into your network as well, which I
Yeah.
did. I did. And I
Yeah.
remember I ran an internal workshop for our team, and it was on that subject of what's the difference between facilitation and training. And you were one of the group of facilitators that I reached out to and said, what's your take on this as
Yeah.
research to start designing this workshop
Nice.
for the rest of the team. So that's
Yeah. I have a bit of an opinion.
that's how it started.
Ah, I love it. And then ever since we've danced together on LinkedIn. However, last year in February 23, I came through Singapore, so we got to meet in person. So that was quite cool.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I
I was
was
very happy.
really, well, I think you have this all the time, but I was like, oh, you're quite tall. Was my initial reaction, I think, in my head.
Oh
Uh,
my God. Okay, can we just talk about this? So someone else said this to me very recently. So for those listening who've never met me and you just see a picture, I'm 5'11 and a half, 5'11, and the response that you've just heard from Lisa is very classic. People go, they meet me and I'm a hugger as well. So I go in for a hug and they're like, oh, you're tall, aren't you? And after COVID, how we'd all been locked in, Lisa, and like
mm,
we'd only ever met people in the little squares of Zoom. I met so many people for the first time, and that was just like the common response, to the extent it really frustrated me. So I've now put on my LinkedIn profile, Kirsty Lewis, 181.5,
yeah, I
which
loved
is
it.
my
I
height.
loved it.
Because I was just like, I am sick to death. Because the other thing I also say is, if we meet someone who's very short, we don't exclaim, oh, you're short,
No, we
but
don't.
we do say to someone, oh, you're tall.
Yeah,
I'm not.
that's true.
I find it bemusing. I love being tall. Anyway, we're not here to talk about height. Um, so you started the conversation that you were working for the British Council in Singapore, but I now know you work for yourself and you've got
Mm.
your own business, Six Communications.
Six
So
comms.
tell us, Six Comms. Sorry, what? How did you leave? Why did you leave? How long have you been working for yourself? Just give us a quick potted history because I want to
Mm.
talk about how you've grown and developed your business.
Yeah. So how I left was I was coming towards the end of my contract. For a few years, I'd been thinking about leaving, but then
Mm-hmm.
COVID hit, and then we got a whole load of online work, which was good as well as not so good.
Yeah.
The team changed, leadership changed. Didn't think it was my cup of tea, felt I'd outgrown it,
Mm-hmm.
and thought, okay, I could sign another contract or I could just take this opportunity to leave. And
Yeah.
I'd run a business before, over a decade before, because I came from London to Singapore having run that business in London. So I did it before. So I thought, well, why not do it again? And
Mm.
if I fail, okay, but I tried. I can always go back into the workforce. So I just said to the manager, no, thank you very much, but I'd like to end it there. And that was after I'd been there 11 years. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. How? What was that? Out of curiosity, what was their reaction?
Well, they were quite new, so
Ah.
I don't think that they had that connection that would have, meant they were overly emotional about it, because they had their own stuff to deal
Yeah.
with, and there was a lot of restructuring going on. So they were still grappling with all of that. So to be honest, like,
Okay.
I don't want to be mean, but I think it was a bit like, oh well, it's one more down.
Oh, we've saved another head.
Yeah,
brilliant.
It's great.
Good for you though for noticing that you needed to change, like just using the language. I've started to outgrow this. It's not what I wanted anymore. It's time for a change. I think that's it's quite insightful of yourself. So you left the British Consulate, no, not the British Consulate, the British Council, and set up your own business. What's that been like? As we call it a journey, don't we, as a metaphor? But what's that been like for you, setting up the business?
Yeah, it has been a journey. We'll say that. I think I was slightly naive because I thought that having had that 11 years of being in quite a big organization working with a range of clients, I would then find it not easy, but not as difficult to kind of have those clients and make those connections. But what I found is, and I don't know whether that was the aftermath of COVID, probably was a lot to do with it, is I just couldn't get my foot back in the door, like with clients that I had a really good relationship with. So I think all the organizations that I'd worked with were suffering as well. So they, training and having an external facilitator was not necessarily on their priority list. So
Yeah.
I was lucky enough that I had a couple of friends, actually ex-colleagues, that had good projects with organisations that I then became a part of. And I have a fairly good network in Singapore, so I could reach out to connections there.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I found most difficult, and I still have to check in with myself about, is actually the pressure of other entrepreneurs or business owners or marketing specialists who talk about what is your niche. And I felt this overwhelming pressure to get to those questions that seem quite simple when they're posed to you. But I felt really like on edge for a long time to answer it, which is interesting because I know you've done an episode with Kat about that, and that really resonated with me. I would recommend that actually for listeners, if they're struggling.
Yes, if you want to talk about your niche.
And I think I'm probably not answering your question, but I would perhaps recommend to people that are starting out, because I wish I'd done this a bit more, is just one of my C's, ironically, is compassion. I wish I had been a bit more compassionate with myself, because it does take a long time for some people. It evolves and it changes, and getting another C of 6 comms is clarity. And I'm finding that the clarity piece can be oh so challenging, and something you have to keep going back to all the time. You think you're clear, and then the next day you change your mind, or I'm not sure whether it's my personality but I just found that piece quite difficult. So I'd go to networking events and people would say, okay, who do you serve? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this question. It's like it seems so simple, but I just found it so difficult to answer, because I'd start to talk and then I'd talk a bit more and then I'd realize, oh wow. And then people were saying to me, yeah, but if you talk to everyone, you're talking to no one. And that phrase used to drive me mad. So I would try and fight against it, and then I had a bit of coaching, and I've kind of, I feel more comfortable with it, and I think I own it a bit more. But I think that comes with time, and you build your confidence.
Oh my god! Yeah. So it's interesting too. It took me 7 years to get to School of Facilitation. So for 7 years, I was an associate doing lots of cool stuff with other companies, knowing all the way through that, though, that I had something that I wanted to birth, but I couldn't, to your point, get my clarity. I couldn't articulate it. I knew it was around how you design workshops and how you show up as a facilitator and trainer. I didn't think anyone cared. I tested that in 2008. I'd written to a few people and no one replied to me. So I took that as a signal that this was a bad idea and then stopped and just focused on being an associate. But all the way through, I had this sort of burning, I just knew there was a something. And then two things happened. 2011, my mum died. 2013, my mentor, Helen Jane, said to me, "You haven't grieved your mum. Going to gift you a coaching session." And I had a coaching session with this amazing woman called Judy Wilkins Smith, and she's a systemic constellation coach. And we were focusing on grief, which was, through family, the family system. But what I then went on to work with her for the next 2 years. But in that time, that's when School of Facilitation was birthed. Because I got clearer. I was like, okay, I know what it is. Oh yeah, I can see what it is now. And it's, so to your point, it takes time. So for me, it was 7+ years. I'm okay with that. We're 10 years down the line now. Oh God, that makes me feel old. But coaching helped me, like working with somebody else to have the conversation definitely is, for me, was the way to go. Because I think I sometimes say our brains can't fight their way out of a paper bag on their own, can they? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The most intelligent human being still needs a bit of help. So all I'd say is, if you're listening to this going, I know there's something there, but I'm not sure, I'd say start, as Kat said, talk it out with a friend, go get some coaching. Either of those things helps.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's
yeah,
my humble opinion.
Yeah.
So you're 3.5 years in, and business development, if there's one person I think I hear you proactively talking about business development, just because you know that, like you just said, I thought I could just slot back into my network, and I'm well connected into Singapore. And that's another thing, you're a Brit in Singapore, so that's not your natural habitat, though you have been there for 11, 12 years.
15 this year.
15, apologies. Yeah. 15. What's your approach to business development? How have you tackled this? Because it is important. Like, we cannot do what we do without thinking about how we evolve and develop our businesses.
Yeah. So I did the initial thing of going to lots of networking events, more structured things. I was doing online networking things. I was going to events in person. And I was just feeling like, I don't know, I felt almost like someone, like in a shop window, and you're like all singing and dancing and people just looking in at me. I just found it really uncomfortable and awkward and stiff. And it's just so ironic, because I'm supposed to be a communications specialist, but I was just finding it so laborious. I felt like I was going through mud. So I quickly found that I was becoming really drained by it, but I knew that it was all about another C of mine, connection. So I knew that it was about building relationships. And my dad actually is just recently retired from running his own business. He had all our life. So I knew from him that building relationships and getting to know people is like the way forward. And even now, I mean, I might sound really like old and people might disagree, but social media gets you so far. But really, in the work that we do, where it's coaching and getting in there and designing experiences for people, you really need to have that in-person connection, and you need to go deep. And it's not something that you just get out of an hour networking event with hundreds of people. So I was craving that. And it just so happened that I was also craving a bit more exercise in my life. So out of COVID, I was regularly walking every Wednesday around my local reservoir. And I just thought, okay, instead of going for copious amounts of coffee, because I'm caffeined out, I'm going to invite people to come and walk with me. And I just wanted to make it as simple as possible. So I just said, right, Wednesday morning is my walking morning. And I'll just put it out there. I'll just ask people if
Mm.
they want to go for a walk. That would be the first option. And then if they say no to that, then it will be a coffee. And then if they say no to that, it will be my least favourite, which is this online. So I kind of gave them the three options, and a lot of people took up the walking option. And to the
Ooh.
point where I met this lady on LinkedIn, and she was based in Singapore, and she was a storyteller facilitator. She's done a lot of storytelling workshops, which is like within
Mm.
my wheelhouse, and she's a writer as well. So I found her quite interesting. And funnily enough, she lived like 2 blocks away from me, and we'd never crossed paths. So I invited her out for a walk for 40 minutes. It took about 40 minutes if you walk at a good pace around the reservoir. And I'm telling you, Kirsty, in that 40 minutes, I learned and felt so connected to this lady. And she then gave me this great phrase. She said, I've been looking for something that will take my cold connections to warm. That's it. That's it. I've got all these connections on LinkedIn, but they're
Yeah.
not going anywhere. So how can I translate that into something that's a bit warmer? Let's
Yeah.
walk. Let's walk. Funnily
Yeah.
enough, she wanted to be a part of this. Like, she became like this advocate, and she wanted to like build something with me. But ironically, a few weeks later, she actually got employed full time, so she couldn't do anything with me. But I thought, I'm on to something, and that phrase
That's
just stuck.
love.
So
Yeah.
I thought, okay, let's see how this goes. So it really, I didn't think of it as like a way to get business at all. It
No.
was just, I was enjoying it so much, and it was replenishing my energy so that I could go out and do the other more structured
Love.
traditional networking. So I just kept up with it. I just did it.
Let's just talk about networking events, because I don't go to them either, because I've done a couple and I just didn't enjoy it. And the reason I didn't enjoy it, it felt contrived
Hmm.
for me. And it also felt everyone was sat around this boardroom table, and I was just like, how? And then they did the circle of doom and the creep
Mm,
of death of introduction. And I'm not a particular lover of that. I don't think that gets the best out of people in the
yeah.
room or gives people the opportunity to express themselves brilliantly. I just didn't enjoy it. I found it all rather cliched, and the people of Winchester, Hampshire, trying to be there more than they are. But what's your take on traditional networking event?
Well, very similar to you. I just found it very stiff. I found like I'd walk into a room full of strangers, and literally by looking, trying to look for somebody I knew so that I had some anchor point, I would find myself up against like the wall, like not trying to go into the middle because it's too crowded. And I actually, I find I'm a lot more sensitive than I used to be. I'm getting worse because I'm doing a lot outside, but I find it very claustrophobic and very confining. I don't like going around tables and being sat in a place and being blocked, like in between, and feeling
Mm.
like I can't get out. That sounds really funny, but
Ah.
I was just becoming so much more self-conscious and just not feeling very comfortable.
Yeah.
And so networking, like even the word kind of sends shivers down my spine.
Have
And then
you ever got any business when you've networked? Have you ever got any contacts that have then gone from cold to warm to work?
maybe one or two, but it's very, very few. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's always been like through people I've already had a relationship with or a history
Yeah.
with. Um,
Exactly.
or it's a referral from someone I've had a history with.
Absolutely.
So it's again, it's word of mouth a lot of the
Yeah.
time, and yeah,
It's almost like the sort of recommendation coming out of this is because I think there will be people listening to this going, but I've got to start somewhere. I think go and test out different types of networking formats to see which one works for you, because some of you are going to love it, some of you are going to just, Lisa and I are rolling our eyes here. If you're not watching it on YouTube, you'll see us rolling our eyes of, oh my god. I think so. You've got to test the format. You need to test the types of people you're going to meet there, because there's lots of different versions, aren't there, of networking. And then you said something to me as we were sort of prepping for this, is like, you need to be really intentional. Can you talk a bit more about that? Like, what did you mean by that? Being intentional?
I think it's like being clear on what's your expectation out of it. Is it just to go and meet 5 new people and connect on LinkedIn and start a conversation? Or do you have a particular goal where, if you know the list of people that are there, like, are you like kind of earmarking those people to go and approach and be a bit more direct with it? So I think intentional helps. I think also what's helped me is thinking of it as a mini workshop, as a mini learning experience. So now I go with props. So I always have, and this is a shout out. Oh my God, I should so be on commission from this facilitator. You know, Jan Keck, he did this great deck of cards and deep questions.
What are the cards called?
Ask deep questions. And I sometimes like put those in my bag and take them with me. I've been known to get an index card and draw my like 3 main things that I offer, hand draw it, and then use it as a talking piece and blank out some information or make it interactive. So rather than just being like, what's your LinkedIn profile, scan here, which is very cold and transactional, I say, actually, I can represent myself and what I offer on an index card. Would you be interested in having a look? And I just pass it to them. And then I ask them questions around it. And it becomes like a learning experience. It's almost like a mini workshop.
Wow.
So they're actually experiencing what I'm like if they worked with me. And then I wear like red shoes. You've got your red lipstick.
Okay. Yeah.
I've got my red shoes that I always put on when I'm going out to meet, because these shoes were something I bought on a family holiday. So really positive to me. And I've made it a bit of a social media thing. So if people have been following me for a while, they instantly look at my shoes to see if I've got them on, because I put a story on my Instagram and say the red shoes are back on, which means I'm going to a networking event. So it's like things that stick.
I didn't realise. I like that. Well, it is true, yeah. You want to like use you as a walking billboard. So if there's a way to make you stick in someone's mind, the red lipstick, the red shoes, being tall, that's always really good. Anything else about networking that you have learned, or even things that have just made you go, oh my God, along the way?
Oh, well, there are some online ones that I've been to that have been horrendous. So there are some groups. I don't know if it's in the UK as much. I'm not sure if this is a Singaporean thing or not, but there are some groups where you go to their online networking event, and all the members of that networking group are suited and booted, like properly in suits, and they have the same background. And you have any newcomers that come in, they put, I think you're going to hate this, this is awful.
Go on.
They put a 60-second timer that's visible to everyone, and you have 60 seconds to pitch who you are and what you do. And it goes, and you could have 50, 60 people in the call. So you've got to listen to all of this.
Oh my
and
God,
then at
pain.
the end, all the ones that have been members for a long time, they have to tell the rest of the group who they introduced to the group, and how much a business they referred to, and how much that equates in dollars.
Sorry, if you're listening, my jaw has just dropped. What the actual? Now look, Kirsty, rein it back. You're bringing your Western values in here. I'm guessing it's a very Asian way of potentially doing business. And if that's the way things get done, that's the way things get done. It's just not how you or I would necessarily choose to operate.
Yeah, so it was really uncomfortable. Luckily, there was another guy in there that was also a newcomer. And bearing in mind, this person had literally sent me so many messages on LinkedIn trying to get me to go to this. In the end, I just caved and just said, oh,
Yeah.
like, let's just go and see what it's like, because he's making it sound like this amazing opportunity where I'm going to get so much business from it. So just to kind of shut him up, really, I just went. And I'm so glad that another guy had the same experience. So he'd been like messaged on LinkedIn to come and participate, and we were in the same like breakout group, and we just got talking and was like, this is just horrendous. Like we were literally sweating with nerves and anxiety at the way that it was. I don't know. It was just so transactional and nothing human about it at all. It was just dollar signs.
So clearly you signed up.
Yeah, and then but then at the end, so you've sat through all this, and then they say, and to join, it's like not even 100. We're going into $1,000 to like become a member.
Wow.
And you have to bring in money each week.
Oh. You have to bring in money. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't even. All my financial limiting beliefs are just firing off right now, and just feeling slightly odd. What's 1,000 Singapore dollars in UK? Do you know, roughly?
Well, it's several hundred. More, yeah.
Wow.
It's
and then you're expected to bring in more members to then. Okay, right.
Yeah, no. And then it's like targets and all of that. It's everybody has a target and they hit. Oh, it's yeah. So,
but it's hard enough for us to hit our own targets in our businesses sometimes, to have that as a secondary pressure.
But then, Kirsty, you have all these hundreds of people that are then, if you become a member, you have that known to the other members. And then when you post on LinkedIn, they all comment and like. So you're bumped up the algorithm, basically. And it's just those echo chambers.
Does it work? I don't know if it works.
I'm not convinced.
Because the echo chamber, are you getting to the people you really want to talk to, or are you just talking to your echo chamber?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not going to buy from you. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so networking is not part of the business development like mainstay. It has a role when you're intentional about it. You and I are also talking about how business development is a long game. It's not a short game. What are some of your ingredients that you now deploy when it comes to thinking about business development in your business?
So, as I said, I started walking, and that's kind of evolved into building this community that now has over 100 members in the WhatsApp community. And I've done it. It was like a free thing. So out of just going on a few walks, I then made it into a very intentional, consistent part of my business. So developing a community and leading that. And what does that involve? Never, ever led or created community before. But so I'm just learning as I'm going. And I'm just using all my facilitation skills to the max to try and facilitate this great way of more naturally and organically connecting. So
beautiful.
I've grown this community, and now from this month it was free up until this point, because I wanted it to be an easy yes and grow it to a size. And that's taken me roughly around a year to do that. And so now I'm thinking, okay, this is sticking. So now when I do go to the more traditional networking events, the ones that I actually enjoy, people are coming up to me and saying, "Oh, you're the walking lady. You do the walks." So that's
Nice.
something that's sticking. Um,
Yeah.
so in terms of business development, I'm using this, as I've learned from my marketing coach, it's top of the funnel. So it gets me the visibility, my name's
Hmm.
out there, it gets me connected with a positive experience that everybody's enjoying. It then builds this group of people, professionals from all different walks of life, that I can call upon if I need. So I
Hmm.
could potentially collaborate with them. Um, and it's growing and it's thriving and it's getting bigger. And so now I use it as an opener. So when I message someone on LinkedIn, or they look like they want to connect with me, I say, well, I noticed that you're based in Singapore. Would you like to join my walk and talk community? And
Yeah.
that piques the curiosity, and it's an easy in then. And so I get them
Yeah.
into my WhatsApp group, and then they come on a walk with me, have a really good time, and then I tag them, and then the ripple effect then is massive,
Yeah.
because then they connect with other walkers and they collaborate on different things. But
Nice.
I'm the, what do you call it, the connector, the vessel for that connection to
Yeah. The
happen.
conduit. Here's another C.
Conduit.
You're the conduit.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Maybe. Um. So I was just thinking as well. Like, it's funny. Like, you go, oh, I can see you're in Singapore. Do you want to come for a walk? And like in any other country, you just couldn't do that because the countries are so vast. Singapore is like smaller than London, I think, or the same size as London in
Mm.
terms of like square miles.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, it's easy. It's an easy offer, isn't it, to go to people? Hey, I see you're in Singapore. Would you like to meet up? Because it's not like they've got to travel hours
Yeah.
and hours to come and meet you
Yeah.
or to find one another, which is just made me smile. And I think that's really interesting as well. Like, again, it takes time. It takes time. And I bet when you first started the walking and talking, you didn't go, right, I'm going to start this walk and talk community. And we're going to start with a few people. And then I'm going to create the WhatsApp group. And then I'm going to grow it to a certain size. And then. Like, it's organic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's organic, and it's only been a few months that I've actually got my act together and made the WhatsApp group like a community so they can join in other groups. So I have a podcast group, so that promotes my own podcast, and then I have a workshop group where I can put up any workshops that I'm doing that they'd like to be involved with. And yeah, it's become like a non-negotiable integral part of sixcoms
Yeah.
and how it operates.
Nice.
So
I
and
love
that comes with it. We're going to be doing, somebody I collaborate with who's a visual facilitator, we're going to be doing some work for a group of lawyers, and we're customizing and designing a special walk and talk session for them when they are coming to Singapore from all over the world in this week of learning and conference.
Yeah.
So that came about as a result of me walking with someone who referred me. So if
Nice.
you build it big enough, then the business will
They
come
will
out of
come.
that. They will come. And
There's
so
a
that's what I
phrase.
focus on.
I think I saw on LinkedIn recently that I want to say Henley did their first outdoor coaching week.
Yeah.
Like, brought outdoor coaches. So you saw that.
Yeah.
So it's a thing, and it's about time that it's becoming more known, formalized, because we all know when we go out for a walk, you have a really good talk, and it's because you're not staring at each other in the eyes, and all the benefits of being out in nature, but also that being in parallel, I think, makes a massive difference to being able to allow someone to open up and speak. Another thing as well we talked about, another C, is consistency. So in business development, we need to be consistent. What does that mean for you?
It does mean consistently showing up on the social media channel, LinkedIn predominantly, because
Yeah.
I really I enjoy that platform, and I think it is good in terms of visibility. People do follow and they do know what you're doing, sometimes a bit too much, and you think, oh my goodness, I must have been posting a lot lately. But I think it does. I think it does make a difference if you're there regularly and consistently.
Yeah.
And they know more about you. You're not starting off at a back foot. They've kind of feel that they have a connection with you.
Yeah.
Before
It's
you
brand
start getting
awareness.
into it, it's brand awareness.
With
Yeah.
my old hat on from a big corporate, that's classic brand awareness. It's like in the past, brand awareness for the big brands was TV adverts or
Mm.
big billboards or posters. But brand awareness for people like yourself and me is showing up on social media, being on other people's podcasts. It's just sharing what we know and what we're passionate about, so that when someone has a need, they're like, oh yeah, we need to talk to Lisa.
Mm.
Oh, actually, Kirsty, we need to go and have a conversation with her. And that's where the business starts to come through, especially from people you don't know. But it takes time. It's not, again, it doesn't happen just because you've done a month's worth of posts.
No.
And you just got to have the faith. So I think in the first instance with business building, it's like, mine your immediate network, talk to people that you know who know you. So it's that first layer of people as I sort of see them in my world, and then keep that presence going on social media and showing up, and like you've done with the walk and talk, you've created another avenue to be present, and that then leads to like what I almost call the next layer of people coming in and talking to you and wanting to know more. Is there anything else that we need to know about business development today that you wanted to talk to?
I think also, yeah, the patience part is really important, is to be patient, and it's the long game. But don't underestimate the connections you build, and don't expect something to come out of it straight away. You might be surprised. It might be several months or years later, and you're just like, oh, what? I had an incident where I got associate work just a little while ago in an organization that I've been trying to get into for ages, and it came out of me having a 30-minute conversation with someone 8 months previously who remembered what I said in that conversation and then reached out to me, and now I've got a nice gig out of it.
Brilliant. We always ask the quick fire questions. So I'd like to ask you 4 questions, Lisa, as we round out our conversation. So the first question is, what advice would you give to someone starting out?
Be compassionate with yourself, and don't worry that you can't answer those seemingly simple questions like, what's your target audience? What services do you offer? What's your value proposition? Because they are all essential questions, but just take your time with it, because it's a bit of a journey.
It is. Thank you for saying that. Who do you follow in social media land that you think others should too?
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to some of my fellow Singapore based professionals. So the
Okay,
first one
do it.
is Jun Han Chin, who is a visual storyteller. His visuals are amazing, so very thought provoking. So I would follow him. And a facilitator here called Isman Tanuri, whose posts are always insightful, always kind of forward thinking. He has a lot to say about tech, about leadership, about organizations. So I'd recommend him. And the third one, back to my home country, David Pullen, who has an amazing heading, a profile heading that says, and I'm reading because I can't remember, I introduce your facts to feelings, your head to heart, and your explanation to inspiration. So people lean in and say, let's talk more.
Oh, wow. What does he do?
He's a storyteller, facilitator. He's going to have a book out actually in October that sounds amazing. It's called something along the lines. I'm sorry, David, if I get this wrong. DNA, the DNA for engagement. You might need to check
Okay,
that. But
we're
yeah.
fine. And what we'll do is we'll put all those people's social media, LinkedIn links in the show notes. What book do you recommend to people at this time?
Well, I'm really into the outdoors and taking people out there to connect and have more meaningful conversations. So there are two books I'd recommend. The first one is Coaching Outdoors by Leslie Roberts, and
Mm-hmm.
the second one is The Creativity Factor by Gary Pratt.
Thank you. I haven't heard either of those, so that would be good to go and find. And how have you invested in yourself or your business to support you in moving forward?
So, yeah, around the clarity piece at the beginning, I invested in some business coaching. I also, when I decided that outdoors was my place that I wanted to take clients, I've invested in 2 certificates for coaching outdoors run by Leslie Roberts with the Coaching Outdoors book.
Brilliant.
And what else have I done? I also got a website designer to put my website together so it looks a bit
Yeah,
clearer. And just having a tribe, having a team, having people like you in my network that I can bounce ideas off of, because you're really not alone if you just reach out. There are people there that
definitely.
are more than generous to help.
Nice. Lisa, thank you for being here today. How can people connect with you? What's the best
So
way?
I'm on LinkedIn, Lisa Partridge. I'm on Instagram, Six Comms Lisa, I believe. I've got a Six Comms podcast, Instagram, separate account, and my website is sixcoms.org.
And also, she has a podcast called
And
Six
I have a
Comms, which
podcast.
I recommend. Yeah. So if you want to go and learn more about Lisa, what she does, if you're Singapore based or you're visiting Singapore, I'd definitely recommend connecting with Lisa, especially if you've got some time and you can join one of her walk and talk sessions. Thank you for being with us today. It has been great talking with you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
What I found really interesting about this conversation is with Lisa is her grace and how she is she seems very relaxed and about, this is business development takes time. It is not something that happens overnight. Like new clients don't just appear out of thin air. We have to take effort to find them. You need to put the time in, you need to be resourceful, and you need to nurture them, but doing it in a way that works for you. So you heard there were examples of those networking events that both of us were just like, I just can't do that. That is just not my way of operating. And Lisa's found her own way of networking through the walking and talking, and how she has done it with really clear intent, but in a way that is lovely. Like, it's not icky. It's beneficial for anyone who comes along. Everybody needs to have some walking, and everyone benefits from some talking. And how she's saying, but that's taken her a year to grow that to a community of 100. And so I think the invitation for all of us is to notice, like, how do we view business development? Because I think it's very easy to get sucked into, in this day and age, to what we see on social media of like the marketing gurus, experts, specialists saying, you need to do X, Y, and Z. You need to do the LinkedIn challenge. You need to show up on Instagram. You need to send out all these outreach emails. And for some of you, that is going to work and you're going to love it. And then for others, that just doesn't have a resonance. Some of you are going to love networking. For others of you, you're not going to want to do that. So I think my summary is, find what works for you as you start out. Keep testing different ways, different formats. See what works, what doesn't work, and what you enjoy, because you've got to enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy doing it, no one else in your business is going to do your business development for you at this time, and you've got to do it. And so if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it, and therefore you'll get no new clients. So find something you enjoy, team. Thank you as well for listening to today's podcast. It really means a lot that you give yourself permission, time out of your day, maybe on a walk, to be listening to this. If you do enjoy it, please can you do a couple of things for me? Can you give it a like, some stars, share it with somebody else? So that would be the biggest thing for me. Can I ask you to share the podcast with someone who is a facilitator, a trainer, a coach who may find this equally useful? Anyway, thank you for being here, and it was really great to see you.